Hello, friend. Come sit with me a minute while the late light slants across the porch and a flag down the block sighs in the breeze, while someone in the next yard clicks off a sprinkler and the street smells faintly of cut grass. I want to ask you something you may not have asked yourself aloud. Have you noticed your favorite coffee mug feels a touch heavier than it used to? Or that a jar lid needs a rubber band, when once it needed only your grip? Do you stand up from the garden and sense a pinch in the small of your back that makes you straighten slowly, not dramatically, but carefully, like you're listening to a cranky hinge? Have you been teased, kindly, about shrinking in the dryer? Because the mark you penciled on the pantry door sits a little higher than the top of your head now. Those tiny moments are the body's postcards. They don't accuse. They whisper. And tonight we'll read them together. Because building stronger bones after 50 isn't a speech about milk. It's a kitchen story, a sidewalk story, a clock story. It's 7 humble foods that can carry more calcium than the glass you grew up with. Plus the quiet helpers, vitamin D and vitamin K too, that tell calcium where to live. It's how to spread that help across breakfast, lunch and dinner so your body can actually use it. It's what to do if kidney stones have ever knocked on your door, so you can protect your skeleton without inviting that kind of pain back into your life. No miracles, no fear. Prevention, not repair. Tuesday night, not a seminar. Let me show you a pantry shelf that's better for bones than most medicine cabinets. And let me do it the way a plain English doctor should, through regular meals that taste like America. Picture a can that sits right by the tuna, the kind you can open with the old handheld opener you refuse to throw away. Canned salmon with the soft bones still inside looks ordinary and behaves like a secret. 3 ounces can bring more calcium than a glass of milk. And the small, soft bones crumble into the salad so easily you'll forget you're eating them. The salmon's omega-3 seconds soothe the low buzz of inflammation that makes joints crabby. Its protein is the frame bones hang on. When you mash that salmon with lemon, pepper, and a spoon of plain yogurt and pile it on whole grain toast, you aren't being good. You're laying bricks. That same afternoon, a neighbor drops by with a bag of collards she grew in a backyard that still smells like Sunday. Cooked collard greens are a powerhouse. 1 cup can top a glass of milk for calcium, and the vitamin K inside acts like a traffic cop, helping calcium find its home in the skeleton instead of drifting where it doesn't belong. You splash lemon on those greens and you've brought vitamin C to the table too, the quiet partner that helps you absorb what you eat. You know tofu as a stir-fry friend. What many folks don't realize is that tofu set with calcium salts look for calcium sulfate. On the label can pack more calcium in half a cup than milk does in a glass. Dice it into a skillet with peppers and onions and a shake of smoked paprika, and you'll swear you're eating diner-style eggs while your bones quietly applaud. Or tuck it into miso soup with bok choy, whose gentle crunch delivers calcium without the oxalate wallop that spinach has. If plant milks have found their way to your fridge because you like the taste or your stomach asked for a truce, know that many are fortified to beat milk at its own game. 1 cup of fortified soy or almond milk can out-calcium the cow, as long as you shake the carton so the minerals don't settle like silt. Pour it over oats with a scatter of chia seeds. 2 tablespoons of chia bring a surprising dose of calcium on their own, plus fiber that keeps your sugar steady, and you've made breakfast into a bone-keeping ritual that even a hurried morning can hold. We haven't even opened the jar of tahini. You've swirled it into hummus 1,000 times, but 2 tablespoons of that creamy sesame paste can rival dairy. Stir it with lemon, garlic, and warm water into a sauce, and you've built a bridge from roasted broccoli to satisfaction. Or spread it thin on toast and layer tomatoes on top and you'll think you dreamed up a diner classic. Add almonds to your day, a small handful in the afternoon, not a bowlful at night because sleep still matters, and they bring their own calcium while they keep you from prowling the pantry before dinner. If you enjoy small fish with the bones intact, sardines tucked under a squeeze of lemon on crackers, or mackerel on greens, those portions shout calcium in the voice of food your grandmother would recognize. If sardines taste like childhood lunches you swore off, slide back to the canned salmon and let it carry the load. This isn't about virtue. It's about the short list of foods that let you meet your daily needs without nursing a milk mustache. Here's the part the supplement labels don't tell you. Calcium is an obedient mineral. with two bosses. Vitamin D is the one who opens the door in your gut and says, "Come in." Vitamin K2 is the one who points to the right address and says, "Live here." You can swallow all the calcium you like. Without D, much of it passes by. Without K2, some of it may settle into places you didn't mean to furnish. You don't need to learn a biochemistry lecture. You need to remember 3 images. First, morning light. 1 honest minute of sun on your face and forearms counts as a nudge for your body's own vitamin D, especially in spring and summer. In winter, when the sun rides low and we huddle by screens while the sky pretends it's late all day, food and a small, clinician-guided supplement may need to carry more of the load. D shows up in fortified plant milks and cow's milk, in a carton of orange juice that brags modestly about it, and in the darker fish like salmon and trout you're already using for calcium's sake. Second, a block of good cheese on the sometimes shelf, because a few cheeses like Gouda or Jarlsberg bring K2 along with their pleasure. They don't get a daily slot. They get a few small cameos where they elevate greens and say kind things to calcium. Third, a sticky little word that belongs to the brave, natto, a fermented soy that's wildly high in K2 and wildly divisive in taste. If you're curious and adventurous, a spoon over rice once in a while is a science fiction level dose of K2. If you're not, you are in excellent company. Plenty of Americans get enough K2 by eating eggs, some cheeses, and fermented foods in sensible amounts. It's not about exotic. It's about the gentle traffic direction that lets the calcium you're eating become you. Spread those edges of the puzzle across a day and the picture holds. Your skeleton can't swallow a single big payment at night and call it even. It prefers installments 3 small checks made at breakfast, lunch, and supper, so its builders can use what arrives. A cup of fortified plant milk or a yogurt bowl in the morning, collards, kale, or bok choy at noon, with a tahini drizzle and lemon, canned salmon or tofu at supper, all under the eye of a clinician who knows your history and your medicines. That last clause matters. Bone doesn't exist alone. Proton pump inhibitors for reflux can quietly hinder your ability to absorb certain forms of calcium. Long-term steroids, thin bone. Some seizure medicines play with vitamin D levels. You don't stop the pills that keep you safe. You ask for a plan that feeds bone while the medicines do their jobs. That plan includes a simple test of 25-hydroxyvitamin D to pick a safe supplement dose if your level is low, a DEXA scan to show where your bone density stands now, and regular check-ins that prevent you from guessing. You don't need a spreadsheet. You need a small notebook. 2 weeks of dinners, a note about a morning back twinge or a Thursday of no twinge at all, a line about your walk, a yes or no beside plant milk with breakfast, a smiley face next to lemon on collards. That little notebook changes the way a visit feels. You arrive with evidence, not anxiety. I'll put this into the real rooms where I've spent my life listening. Mary is 74, a retired librarian who stacks folded dish towels like she's shelving first editions. She has never liked milk. She learned to drink it in her mother's kitchen because she was told she ought to, and she gave it up the first month she lived alone. Her bone density scan last fall whispered, osteopenia. That in between place where bone has thinned but not yet crossed into osteoporosis. Her back hums on grocery days. She's down 3/4 of an inch from the mark her late husband penciled on the doorframe. We didn't scold. We built meals. Breakfast became oats with fortified soy milk, chia seeds, almonds, and frozen blueberries. Lunch shifted to a collard and white bean bowl with lemon and a spoon of tahini dressing. Dinner started starring canned salmon patties with a squeeze of lemon and a side of roasted broccoli, or a tofu stir-fry with bok choy. She started sitting by the window for a minute each morning without her phone, then walking 2 mailboxes after supper when the heat broke. She kept her coffee, but moved the second cup to early afternoon, because sleep is glue for bone repair and coffee at 7 likes to argue with glue. 3 months later, she didn't say, "I'm cured." She said, "I feel steady," which is a way of saying stairs stopped feeling like a story and started feeling like steps again. Across town, Nolan is 68, a retired contractor with calves that still look like they know what a ladder island. He came to me not because of bone, but because of kidney stones, the kind of pain you remember like a date. He'd done what seemed sensible after his first stone. He quit dairy and called it prevention. He didn't know he'd taken away an ally. Here's the paradox. Most kidney stones are calcium oxalate. It sounds like eating calcium would make them more likely. In most older adults, the opposite is true. Eating adequate calcium with meals binds up oxalate in the gut so less of it reaches the kidneys. It's calcium supplements at odd hours, low water intake, high salt dinners, and a steady parade of high oxalate foods without a calcium partner that write more stones into a week. So Nolan learned to drink water like a person who meant it, to put calcium-rich foods at mealtime, not at bedtime, to shake his plant milk and pour it over oats with chia in the morning, to say yes to collards, kale, and bok choy, and to pair a baked potato with a cup of yogurt rather than butter and salt. He learned that spinach is a lovely food that happens to be an oxalate festival fine once in a while with a calcium friend, not daily as a badge of virtue. His clinician ordered a simple metabolic panel and a 25-hydroxyvitamin D. For recurring stones, a 24-hour urine can map out calcium, oxalate, citrate, and sodium. Nolan didn't memorize any of those words. He memorized water bottle on the counter and calcium at meals. A year later, he'd made friends with the idea that bone and kidney can both be happy when the plate and the clock cooperate. While we're in the kitchen, let's talk about the American habits that borrow from bone without asking. Coffee isn't a villain, but a pot all day long nudges calcium out through the kidneys more than a cup or two with food does. Screens aren't a sin, but they keep us inside when the morning could be telling our biology, make some vitamin D. Big salty dinners at 8 whisper to the skeleton, pay for this. By pulling water and minerals into the wrong places and stealing quality sleep that your bone cells need to glue tiny repairs in the night. Medicines that protect the gut are a gift for reflux, but they change the acidity that some calcium forms rely on to be absorbed. Winter makes indoor life the default, and sidewalks turn to risk instead of therapy. This isn't a list of scoldings. It's a list of levers you can push gently. Coffee beside breakfast, then an early afternoon, last call. Screens on the charger by 9 so your brain lets melatonin dim the lights, which is when Bone's night crew clocks in. Salt that lives in your hand rather than a restaurant's ladle. A vitamin D level that aims a modest supplement dose rather than a gamble. A 10-minute walk on the brightest aisle of the store when the sidewalk looks like a lawsuit. You'll hear quiet signs whispers long before Bone raises its voice. A back that hums after you stand at the sink and quiets when you move. A height that's down a little from last year's physical. A wrist that cracked in a fall you wouldn't have called spectacular. Those are the moments for food to sing, for light to meet your eyes on purpose, for a DEXA scan to draw a map, for a clinician to talk about whether the kitchen and the sidewalk are enough, or whether medicine should join. Red flags deserve action without debate. Sudden, severe back pain after a small twist that makes you feel shorter and tender over one spot is not a wait and see that could be a compression fracture. The sooner you're seen, the better you do. A hip that takes your breath after a trip on the rug is not a bruise. That's pictures and hands, not denial. Kidney stone pain that takes you to your knees, especially with fever, vomiting, or blood in the urine, is an emergency, not a Google search. Calm isn't ignoring. Calm is knowing which door to walk through and walking through it now. I promise 7 foods that can match or beat milk for calcium. You've already met most of them in the form you'll actually eat. Canned salmon with soft bones. Fortified plant milks that earn their label by bringing you more than the carton's design. Tofu set with calcium. Cooked collards and their cousins, turnip greens and kale. Bok choy that crunches like a polite celery. Chia seeds that make your breakfast honest. Tahini that turns vegetables into a bowl you'll finish. Small fish with bones if you like them. Or a cheese cameo when K2 is invited to the party. But I want to be careful here. You don't have to count milligrams at the table. You have to count scenes. Breakfast that isn't beige. Lunch that shows green and has a squeeze of lemon. Supper that looks like it touched a pan and includes either a fortification or a bone-carrying food that tells your skeleton restock at the same time your legs are about to take you on a short walk, because night is better when you move a little. Spread your calcium across the day and it behaves better. Aim it with D and K2 and it moves in. Ask your clinician to measure that honest 25-hydroxyvitamin D number once or twice a year so you don't under or overdo a supplement. If they order bone medicine because your DEXA speaks loudly, you don't argue. You ask how to eat and move so that medicine has something worth protecting. Let me give you one compact evening that turns the idea into a habit. A skillet warms while the news hums low. You flake canned salmon with lemon and pepper and a spoon of plain yogurt, pat it into small cakes and let them turn golden at the edges. A sheet pan holds broccoli tossed with olive oil and pepper. The florets squeak when your fork meets them. You whisk tahini with lemon and a splash of warm water in a teacup and drizzle it over the greens so they glisten. A glass of fortified soy milk sits beside the plate if you like it, or a tall glass of water if you don't. The phone charges in the kitchen. A lamp, not a screen, is the last light your eyes see. After dishes, you walk the hallway or the sidewalk for 10 minutes because weight-bearing tells bone to stay interested. Your calves behave like little pumps pushing blood north. Your balance practices without you making a big deal of it. You go to bed not saintly, just a person who arranged the props so your body could do what it was built to do. None of this requires a new personality or a new bank account. Store-brand fortified plant milk counts. Canned salmon goes on sale. Greens are cheap when you bring them home whole and cut them yourself, or they're reasonable pre-washed when your hands are having a day. Chia is inexpensive if you buy it by the bag and stretch it over weeks. Tahini lives a long time in the fridge. Almonds are less costly in pieces than in photogenic whole nuts, and they chew the same. If you prefer cow's milk and it loves you back, you're welcome at this table. Just don't forget the other foods. The point isn't to shun dairy, it's to stop believing milk is the only key to the door. Many keys fit. You don't need them all on the same ring. I'll end this first chapter the way I like to end a clinic visit, with a picture you can stand in tomorrow. Morning sees you in a kitchen that knows its job. The planter on the sill looks brighter when you slide the shade and give your eyes a minute of honest light. You pour a cup of fortified plant milk over oats, stir in chia, and sprinkle almonds. Coffee sits beside that bowl, not in front of it, because your stomach and your bones prefer it that way. Lunch is a collard and bean bowl with lemon and a spoon of tahini you stirred without measuring, because your hand has learned the weight of enough. Supper is tofu with bok choy or salmon patties with broccoli and lemon. After you rinse the skillet, you stretch your calves at the sink heel down, knee soft, then walk the hallway once while the last light lingers on porch rails up and down the street. Your phone sleeps in the kitchen because your brain does its bone work in the dark. You slide into bed, and you do not give your skeleton a thought, which is how you know you're doing it right. Healthy aging isn't loud. It's repeatable. If this felt like someone with a stethoscope talking recipes on a porch, that's the idea. Share it with the friend who jokes she's allergic to milk and thinks her bones are doomed. With the brother who had one kidney stone and promised never again but isn't sure what that promise looks like on a plate. With the neighbor who measured himself against the pantry door and didn't like the news. Tap like if your kitchen already smells like lemon and garlic and something in a skillet. Subscribe if you want more plain, respectful doctor advice for seniors that turns longevity tips into meals, turns senior nutrition into bowls you'll actually eat, turns daily habits for healthy aging into a Tuesday you can repeat when no one is watching. Prevention beats repair because prevention tastes like dinner and feels like a 10-minute walk, while the American flag down the block flutters itself to sleep. Think of calcium as a traveler, and your body as a small American town with 2 good roads and a few tricky intersections. The traveler wants to reach the right neighborhood, your hips, your spine, your jaw without getting lost in back roads or stuck at red lights. Vitamin D is the daylight that keeps the road open. It helps calcium cross from the gut into the bloodstream. Vitamin K2 is the friendly crossing guard at the last block who waves that traveler toward bone and away from places where calcium doesn't belong. When people say, strong bones equal milk, they're remembering one road sign from childhood. The real map includes fortified plant milks, greens like collards and bok choy, tofu set with calcium, sesame paste, canned salmon with soft bones, chia, almonds, and a few cheeses that bring K2 to the party. None of these foods act alone. They act better when the lights and clocks in your house line up with them, when coffee minds the hour, when screens quit early, when dinner's salt doesn't swagger, when you catch a minute of honest sky, and when your feet carry you long enough after supper to remind bones they're still the frame that holds up the day. Here's why timing changes everything. Your gut can only hold the door for so much calcium at once. Large, lonely doses slide past unused. Smaller portions tucked into breakfast, lunch, and dinner step through politely. If dinner is the only meal you treat like real food, and it happens at 8 under a sodium parade, you're asking your body to absorb a heavy load at the hour it's least cooperative. Evening is when insulin sensitivity dips, vessels stiffen, and sleep needs quiet chemistry. That's why a bowl of oats with fortified soy milk and chia in the morning, collards with tahini and lemon at noon, and canned salmon patties with roasted broccoli at 6 build more bone than a giant glass of milk at 10. It's not just what, it's when. Vitamin D answers to the seasons and your zip code. In summer, a sliver of morning sun on your face and forearms while you sip water may help your skin make a little D. In winter, the sun hangs low, sleeves get longer, and screens steal the minutes when daylight would have done you good. Fortified foods. And, when your level is low, a small supplement chosen with your clinician. Keep the road open. People often ask, how much? The safest answer starts with a number on paper called a 25 hydroxyvitamin D level. It's a blood test. It tells you whether you need a nudge or a bigger hand. Guessing is how people end up taking too little to matter, or so much it doesn't earn its keep. Vitamin K2 lives in the foods that taste like culture more than vitamins, eggs in moderation, some fermented foods, and a few cheeses that deserve the word treat. You don't need daily slices the size of a postcard. You need small cameos that tell calcium where to live. If a grilled slice of sourdough meets a thin smear of tahini and a tomato on a Sunday, if collards shine with lemon and a dusting of grated cheese now and then, if you say yes to a mild fermented dish once in a while, you're behaving like a person who understands traffic direction without ever saying the phrase traffic direction. American habits can either help that traveler or set up roadblocks without meaning to. Coffee is part of our mornings. It doesn't need to leave. It needs manners. 2 cups beside food? Fine. A pot all afternoon and into the evening? That nudges calcium out through the kidneys and convinces your brain it's noon at 9. Screens tell your brain the sky is bright even when it isn't. If the phone is the last light your eyes see, melatonin stays shy, and your night crew, the bone cells that glue tiny repairs while you sleep, get sent home early. Big restaurant dinners a couple of times a week are part of a happy life. Big salty dinners most nights make ankles puffy, sleep choppy, blood pressure sticky, and put calcium and water where you didn't plan. Winter hides sidewalks, so we hibernate, and bone reads that stillness like a memo that the frame isn't needed. The fixes are small and dull in the best way. Coffee beside breakfast, sunlight on your face for a minute in the morning, a charger in the kitchen so a lamp can end the day, water on the table, dinners that look home-cooked more often than not, and 10 minutes of weight-bearing most evenings. That is senior wellness made from groceries and clocks, not slogans. You'll know when to nudge the plan by learning your body's whispers. Morning back stiffness that fades as you move is a whisper asking for gentle weight-bearing, protein earlier in the day, and a plate that brings calcium in small installments. Noticing the top of your head creeping below a doorframe pencil mark from a few years back is a whisper asking for a DEXA scan to see where you stand, and for a conversation about D and K2, not just milk. A wrist fracture from a low fall, the kind you'd once have called nothing, is your skeleton's version of a quiet throat clearing. It says, check bone density, check vitamin D, make meals count, talk about medicine if food and walking won't be enough by themselves. A kidney stone a decade ago is a whisper about water and timing calcium at meals, so it can bind oxalate in the gut, not as a stray tablet at bedtime. If you've made a habit of spinach smoothies and handfuls of almonds as a meal, a whisper might be a pinch in your side, and a memory you don't want repeated. Pair high oxalate foods with calcium foods, spread them out, and drink water like you mean it. Red flags don't want tweaks, they want action. Sudden, severe back pain after a little twist, paired with tenderness over one spot and a sense that you're shorter today than yesterday, deserves a call and a visit. Compression fractures don't reward stoicism. A hip that steals your breath after a trip on the throw rug needs pictures and hands, not ice and hope. Kidney stone pain that builds like a wave and won't let go, especially with fever, vomiting, or blood in the urine, is not a night to bargain with. New confusion or weakness with a fall is a door you walk through now, not tomorrow. Because guesswork is exhausting, a 2-week home log turns this into a pattern you can use. Keep it in nouns. Morning. Oats with fortified soy milk, plus chia, plus almonds. Coffee X1. Sat by window 2 minutes. Noon. Collards, plus white beans, plus lemon, plus tahini drizzle. Supper. Canned salmon patties, plus roasted broccoli, plus water. Walked 12 minutes after dishes. Meds. Reflux pill 30 minutes before dinner. Calcium food at meals. No calcium tablets at bedtime. Sleep. 10:15. 6:10. Up once to bathroom. Back felt fine on waking. On louder nights, write that down too. Steak plus restaurant fries plus beer. Screen until 10:30. Slept 12:15. 5:30. Ankles puffy. That small notebook belongs at your next visit. It's not a confession, it's a map. When a clinician can see which Tuesdays felt good and what lived on those plates and clocks, they can choose tests and treatments without guessing. Expect a few simple, useful tests. A DEXA scan takes minutes and shows where you are on the bone density spectrum. A 25-hydroxyvitamin D level tells whether daylight and fortified foods are enough, or whether you need a modest supplement. A basic metabolic panel peeks at kidney function and calcium in the blood. If stones have visited more than once, a 24-hour urine test can measure calcium, oxalate, citrate, and sodium to see which lever matters most in your case. If you take a proton pump inhibitor long-term for reflux, a conversation about the form of calcium in your food and whether your dose can be minimized is worth having. If you've needed steroids, if you take seizure medications, or if your thyroid medicine and calcium supplements run into each other, that's choreography more than scolding. Spacing pills and food by a few hours often solves problems without drama. Mechanisms make more sense when they look like real rooms. Imagine a Wednesday. You wake and sit on the edge of the bed long enough for your balance to say, "Good morning." In the kitchen, you slide the shade and give your eyes one honest minute of light. You stir fortified soy milk into oats with chia and a few almonds. Coffee lives beside the bowl, so your stomach and bones aren't asked to do acrobatics. Mid-morning, you take your thyroid pill if you use one. Knowing calcium-rich meals will wait a few hours, so each gets its turn to be absorbed. Lunch is a collard and bean bowl with lemon and a tahini drizzle because you like the taste and because vitamin K is waving that traffic baton where it matters. The phone naps in the kitchen by 9. A lamp ends the evening, and your night crew of bone cells isn't shooed away by blue light. On that day, calcium had company D from light and fortified foods, K2 from the occasional cheese cameo or fermented bite, and it had direction. People worry about kidney stones when they hear, "Eat your calcium." It helps to picture where oxalate and calcium meet. Oxalate rides in foods like spinach, beets, rhubarb, almonds, and potatoes. Most of it can pass through without trouble if calcium is present in the same meal to bind it in the gut. The pair leaves together in the ordinary way. When high oxalate foods arrive without calcium, when you're short on water, when dinner is salty and late, or when you're swallowing calcium tablets at odd hours instead of eating calcium at meals, the chemistry favors stones. The fix is not to exile every vegetable you enjoy. It's to pair, to spread, and to hydrate. Choose bok choy, collards, kale, broccoli more often. Enjoy spinach, but let it share the table with yogurt or fortified plant milk, and not be the star every single day. Keep water nearby and salt modest. Prevention beats repair because prevention tastes like dinner. Grocery shelves in the US make this easier than it sounds if you read the small lines once or twice. Fortified plant milks vary. Some out. Calcium milk. Some don't. Shake the carton and you're already winning. Tofu that lists calcium sulfate sets like a firm custard in the pan, and brings more calcium than varieties set with other salts. Canned salmon that lists with bone, or simply looks familiar when you open it, is the kind you want. The soft bones mash into the salad. Sesame paste hides in the international aisle and lives forever in the fridge. A small spoon turns greens into dinner. Bok choy and collards sit green and patient even in winter when tomatoes taste like memories. They crisp and squeak in a hot pan with garlic and lemon. Chia has become a standard item. A few tablespoons stretch across weeks and work as well in a cereal bowl as in a small pudding. You stir at lunch and eat at night when you want something that feels like dessert without a sugar drama. If money or chewing are barriers, the plan flexes. Store-brand fortified soy milk and plain yogurt are usually less expensive and do the job. Almonds in pieces cost less than perfect whole nuts and chew the same. Collards and cabbage are value vegetables. They feed you all week. Tofu is inexpensive protein when you buy it in a twin pack. Canned salmon goes on sale. You buy two and feel like a person who planned. If chewing is hard, collards can be sliced thin and cooked softer. Tofu needs no chewing heroics. Canned salmon folded with yogurt is soft by nature. Chia pudding is basically pre-chewed. Tahini is a sauce, not an obstacle. If reflux has you living on a pill, smaller, earlier suppers, fewer late sweets, and a couple of inches under the head of your bed let you lean off the dose, your clinician can help you step down gently. If a water pill sends you to the bathroom constantly, front-load water in daylight, set a quiet limit near evening, and ask whether the timing of the pill can shift. Here's a small homemade diary that has changed hundreds of visits, a pocket notebook with 1 page per day, filled with quiet facts. Breakfast: oats plus fortified soy milk plus chia plus almonds. Coffee 1 cup. Light 1 minute. Lunch: collards plus beans plus tahini plus lemon. Supper: salmon patties plus broccoli plus water. Walk 12 minutes. Pills: thyroid 7 a.m. Reflux 5 p.m. Sleep 10, 10, 6. 1 bathroom trip. Back okay. Loud day. Restaurant burger and fries. Beer. Screen until 10:45. Slept 12, 5:30. Ankles puffy. Back stiff 20 minutes. Bring 2 weeks like that and you'll see your own cause and effect long before I circle anything in a chart. You'll also give me everything I need to order the right tests without ordering the wrong ones. If your D is low, we pick a modest dose. If your DEXA shows thinning in your spine more than your hips, we talk about posture, core strength in everyday movement, medicine when it's time, and the kind of sitting that doesn't fold you in half all day. If stones are in your past, a 24-hour urine tells whether water, salt, calcium at meals, or oxalate is the lever for you. No internet list knows your house and your labs. Your notebook does. The why always circles back to movement because bones are living tissue that answers to load. You don't need a gym or a plan that sounds like you signed up to suffer. You need 10 minutes most days where your feet hold you up. The grocery aisle with a cart as a rail. The mall in January when sidewalks glare. The sidewalk at dusk when porch lights blink on, and the neighborhood smells like dinners you could name. Calves are little pumps that push blood north. Hips are project managers that keep balance honest. Spine learns its own shape again when you stand tall for a few minutes with your eyes open to a horizon instead of thumb bent over a screen. That 10 minutes gives calcium and its helpers a reason to become you. If you're taking a bone medicine now or you start one after your DEXA, the kitchen still matters. Those medicines don't build bone out of thin air. They protect the bone you give them. Protein at breakfast, calcium at meals, D in range, K2 in cameos, water in a glass you refill, salt in your fingers, not in a restaurant ladle, coffee with an afternoon curfew, screens on the charger, feet on the floor for a few minutes after supper. This is the long game. It is also how you make tomorrow morning feel like you. Share the logic if it makes sense in your hands. Tell your sister who can't stand milk that her skeleton isn't doomed. Her pantry already knows what to do. Tell your neighbor with a stone story that calcium at meals and water are allies, not enemies. Tell the friend who shrugs about shrinking that a scan, a sunny window, a salad with lemon, and a pair of salmon patties can turn a shrug into a plan. This isn't a promise of no fractures. It's the best odds at a life where stairs feel like steps and jars open because you still like the feeling of doing it yourself. Personal plans start inside the home you actually live, in the narrow galley kitchen with its stubborn drawer, the fifth-floor apartment with the slow elevator, the ranch house where the hallway knows your footfall, the winter that throws sleet against the window, the pillbox that has its own opinions, the budget that likes store brands. Bones don't ask you to become someone else. They ask you to make a few repeatable scenes that fit your tools, your taste, your knees, and your calendar, so calcium quietly becomes you instead of remaining a number on a label. We'll shrink the work to the size of your rooms. How to feed bones when chewing isn't fun. How to keep calcium steady when reflux pills, thyroid pills, or bone medicines sit on the counter. How to walk when sidewalks glare with ice. How to keep kidney stones out of the story while your skeleton stays in it. And how to turn breakfast from a beige shrug into a meal that builds something. Begin with the mornings when your knees narrate every step, and your back edits the first hour. The solution isn't bravado, it's circulation. Sit tall in a chair you trust. Rock through your feet as if you're rolling a marble from heel to toe and back again. That slow squeeze and release tells the little pumps in your calves to send fluid north, which is how ankles deflate and spines loosen without a speech. Straighten one knee until your heel floats, toes flex toward your face. Hold, switch. Place your palms on the armrests. Stand once and sit once with control, letting legs do the work while hands spot the effort. If a cane lives beside your chair, use it for the first stand. If a rollator is your reliable bench, lock the brakes and let it be your confidence. This 2-minute ritual is not exercise in the magazine sense. It's plumbing and wiring. Joints get a wash of nutrients. Nerves remember balance. You arrive at the counter steadier, which is a better starting line for breakfast than gritting your teeth. Breakfast is where most of us either help or hinder bone before noon. If eggs are friendly and gout isn't stalking your toe, crack 2 over finely shredded cabbage or kale sautéed in a lick of olive oil with pepper and a breath of garlic. The eggs carry protein that bones and muscles use as scaffolding. The greens bring calcium and vitamin K in a form your body recognizes. A squeeze of lemon hands, vitamin C to the absorption crew. If eggs and your stomach are not on speaking terms, keep the protein and the calcium by other doors. A bowl of oats becomes a bone meal when you pour in fortified soy milk, stir in 2 tablespoons of chia, and scatter a few almonds. The soy milk brings calcium and vitamin D if the carton says so and you give it a good shake. The chia sneaks in its own calcium and fiber. The almonds offer a little more and keep you from prowling for something sweet an hour later. If chewing is fussy because dentures are stubborn or jaw joints are opinionated, blend cottage cheese with a pinch of cinnamon and vanilla until it turns into something as smooth as frosting. Spoon it over sliced pears or cucumber coins, and you'll think you've discovered a dessert your bones wrote themselves. If you prefer savory, stir tahini with lemon, warm water, and a pinch of salt into a drizzly sauce, and pour it over warm bok choy with a hard-boiled egg on the side. Sesame carries calcium, lemon keeps absorption honest, and the greens taste like the part of the grocery you walk by without giving them their due. Apartments and winter change the map, not the destination. When the sidewalk shines with ice like a dare, your boulevard is the hallway. Choose the hour when the building is bright and quiet. Trail a hand along the wall. Walk to the end and back like you own the place because, for those 10 minutes, you do. If you need your rollator, let the cart be your moving park bench. Brakes on whenever you want to view the bulletin board or check the fire extinguisher's inspection tag, which is another way of saying, catch your breath without fear. If wheels are your mode, circulation still listens. Point and flex ankles. Circle them slowly. Straighten and hold one knee at a time, and gently twist through the middle like you're wringing out a towel. Blood follows motion, and blood brings the calcium, D and K2 you put on the plate. On the coldest days, the big box store's opening lap is therapy disguised as errands. The cart is a rail, the floor an honest surface, the light a mood lifter, the cashier a witness to the fact that you showed up. Now bring the pillbox into the kitchen, because choreography matters as much as ingredients. Calcium from food plays well with most medicines. calcium tablets do not. If you take a thyroid pill in the morning, it wants an empty stage. Give it water, and an hour before calcium, rich foods so both get absorbed the way they were intended. If you take a reflux pill before dinner, keep your supper modest and early. Then let calcium live at meals, not at bedtime as a stray tablet that makes absorption guesswork and can wake a stone-prone kidney you meant to keep quiet. If your clinician has started a bone medicine like a bisphosphonate, its rules are fussy because they work. Take it on an empty stomach with a tall glass of water and stay upright. Let breakfast wait. Later in the day, feed calcium at meals so the medicine has something to protect. If a water pill lives on your morning list, front-load water in daylight and tuck salt under your own thumb at the stove, so ankles don't write stories on your socks by evening. None of this is scolding. It's traffic control, so the traveller gets where they belong. Chewing and budget deserve kindness, not lectures. Store-brand fortified plant milk is often less expensive and just as muscular with calcium as the pretty cartons. Shake it. Canned salmon with soft bones goes on sale. You buy two and feel like a person with a plan. Collards, cabbage and bok choy are value vegetables. They feed you all week and don't wilt when life gets loud. Chia looks pricey until you realize a small bag lasts a month and turns breakfast into a habit with 3 spoonfuls. Tahini lives forever in the refrigerator and turns vegetables again into this is dinner. Almonds in pieces cost less than whole photogenic nuts and chew the same. If knives aren't your friends anymore, buy pre-cut greens when they're on sale. They don't judge you and they get you to the skillet faster. Kidney stones walk into this conversation uninvited, and we make room so they don't return. The fear sounds reasonable. Calcium stones, therefore less calcium, but the body prefers nuance. Most older adults lower stone risk by putting calcium into meals, not by banishing it. Calcium eaten with food binds oxalate in the gut, so it leaves the body politely together instead of meeting later in the kidney in a way you'll never forget. The danger zone is high oxalate foods arriving alone, a day short on water, salty restaurant dinners stacked end to end, and calcium tablets taken at odd hours instead of calcium-rich foods at the table. If spinach smoothies have been your badge of virtue every morning, shrink their guest list and invite bok choy, collards, kale, and broccoli to take more turns. If you do eat spinach, pair it with yogurt or fortified soy milk and drink water like you mean it. If stones have been repeat visitors, a 24-hour urine test can tell you whether oxalate, calcium, citrate, or sodium is the lever that matters most for you. Until then, the lever you control is timing and water. Your doctor's office is part of personalization, not a place where you get graded. Bring a small notebook written in nouns and times, not judgments. Oats plus fortified soy milk plus chia plus almonds. Coffee X1. Sat by window 2 minutes. Collards plus white beans plus lemon plus tahini. Walked hallway 10 minutes. Salmon patties plus roasted broccoli plus water. Slept 10:15. 6. On louder days, be honest. Restaurant burger plus fries. Beer. Screen until 10:45. Ankles puffy. Back stiff 25 minutes. That diary teaches you cause and effect, long before anyone orders a test. It also helps choose the right simple checks. A DEXA scan to show where bone density stands now. A 25 hydroxyvitamin D level to aim a modest supplement instead of guessing. A basic metabolic panel to see how kidneys and blood calcium are doing. And, for stone veterans, a 24-hour urine to map what actually matters. If you take a reflux pill long-term, ask whether the dose can be the smallest that works and whether your calcium is best coming from food rather than tablets. If you're on steroids or seizure medicines, your team may add bone protection on purpose. The kitchen keeps doing its part with protein at breakfast, calcium at meals, D in range, K2 in cameos, salt modest, and 10 minutes on your feet most days, so medicine has something worth guarding. Taste is a gatekeeper. We walk through it, not around it. If you hate cottage cheese, whip it smooth with lemon zest and a pinch of salt and spread it on tomatoes or cucumbers. It stops tasting like 1,979 and starts tasting like lunch. If Greek yogurt reads too tangy, Stir in a spoon of peanut or almond butter until it becomes something like pie filling without the sugar debt. Top with thawed blueberries for color and quiet joy. If tofu feels like a dare, buy the kind set with calcium sulfate and treat it like eggs. Crumble it into a skillet with onions, peppers, paprika, and a shake of cumin. It browns. It eats like a diner breakfast. And it plants calcium where it belongs. If sardines remind you of lunch pails you didn't love, let canned salmon do the heavy lifting. The soft bones mash invisibly. The lemon does the perfume. And your bones cash the check. If tahini has been a stranger in your fridge, learn it in a cup. 1 spoon tahini, 1 spoon lemon, a splash of warm water, whisk until silk, thin to drizzle, and pour it on greens that squeak under garlic. The trick is not to become a different person. It's to discover familiar flavors that carry the minerals your skeleton craves. Safety means naming doors you walk through now rather than later. Sudden, severe back pain after a small twist, tenderness over one spot, and a sense you're shorter this week is not a wait-and-see. Compression fractures don't reward patience. Hip pain after a fall deserves pictures, not pride. Stone pain that builds like a wave and brings nausea, vomiting, fever, or blood in the urine is an emergency, not a tea and Google night. New numbers that look strange calcium in the blood too high, for instance, belongs to your clinician's attention, especially if you have thirst, constipation, belly pain, or fog. Sometimes parathyroid glands write that story, and guessing won't fix it. Calm isn't stoicism. Calm is picking the right door and opening it. Now fold everything into a day that returns the favor. You wake and sit long enough to let balance and blood pressure shake hands. The shade slides. Your eyes collect 1 honest minute of daylight so your inner clock remembers its job. Breakfast is not beige. Oats with shaken fortified soy milk, chia and almonds, or eggs folded over bok choy with lemon. Coffee sits beside food, not alone, and the second cup has an early curfew. If a thyroid pill is on board, it got its solo time, and the calcium-rich foods politely waited. Lunch looks like a bowl more than a sandwich. Collards and white beans, lemon and tahini, or tofu with peppers and onions in a quick skillet. Supper is simple enough to survive a bad Wednesday. Canned salmon patties, broccoli that squeaks, a squeeze of lemon, water in a glass that looks like you meant it. If you enjoy cheese, tonight it shaves as a garnish on the greens instead of owning the plate. If you love sour flavor, a forkful of sauerkraut appears beside the fish now and then, because fermented foods play nicely with K2 in cameos. The phone sleeps in the kitchen, a lamp ends the day, the hallway becomes your boulevard for 10 minutes while porch lights wink on and the beagle 2 houses down tells the block it's on duty. Calves do their quiet pump. Ankles send fluid north. Spine stands like it remembers its height. Bones file their repairs in the dark the way they prefer. For the house with stairs that glare and a knee that votes no, your boulevard is shorter and still counts. Put the rollator in front of you like a declaration. Set the brakes, stand tall, take 6 slow steps, pause, look up, breathe out like you're fogging a mirror, and take 6 more. If wheels carry you, ankle circles and knee straightens become your language. If hands ache, warm a washcloth and wrap it around fingers before you open jars or whisk tahini. If chopping is a barrier, buy pre-cut greens when they're on sale and congratulate yourself for solving the real problem, which is getting the food in the pan without resentment. If budget presses, lean into the workhorses. Store-brand fortified soy milk, canned salmon, collards, cabbage, bok choy, carrots, onions, chia, tahini, almonds in pieces. If reflux tries to sabotage the evening, make dinner earlier and smaller, raise the head of your bed a couple of inches, and let chocolate live in the afternoon so melatonin gets to work at night. Talk with your clinician about the smallest reflux dose that gets the job done and the form of calcium that makes sense for you. You will have days that stomp through the plan and slam the door. That's life. Bones listen to the line you draw through weeks, not the dot that is Thursday. The props you set out reduce the damage of a bad day. The carton you shake without thinking pours calcium and D on a morning you didn't feel like trying. The greens that live at eye level in the fridge get cooked because your hand finds them before the leftovers do. The can of salmon beside the opener is a promise that supper can be 30 hands-on seconds and still count. The tahini cup on the second shelf whispers, "Drizzle me." And you do. The hallway is still there, even when the sky is mean. The lamp knows its job, and the phone knows where it sleeps. The notebook is patient. It writes down a loud day with the same pen as a quiet day, then lets you turn the page. Personalization is not perfection, it's the absence of friction. It's a kitchen that cooperates with your hands, a pill routine that stops tripping your food, a route that belongs to you when weather changes its mind, a list that lives on the shelf that's really yours, not the one on the internet. It's calcium that arrives in 3 small checks instead of one big promise, vitamin D that's measured instead of guessed, vitamin K2 that appears like a good neighbor rather than a mascot, water that sits on the table and gets refilled, salt that you can see on your fingertips because you put it there, coffee that minds the clock, a screen that says goodnight before you do, a walk that proves you're made of moving parts. It's prevention dressed as dinner and a 10-minute stroll. If you felt yourself somewhere in these rooms, if you tasted lemon on collards or smelled salmon cakes going golden, if you could feel the counter under your palm during that long heel-back calf stretch, if you saw the little notebook on the microwave with a pen tied to it by a string, then you've already done the hardest part. You can picture it. Picture becomes practice when the objects stop moving. Put the carton you shake on the front shelf. Stand the greens up like flowers so you see them first. Keep the can of salmon by the opener. Leave the tahini cup where your hand expects it. Let the rollator face out, not tucked away like a guest chair. Put the charger in the kitchen. Trust that boring wins. Bones are built in boring moments that happen often. Share the version that fits you with the sister who says she can't do stairs anymore, with the neighbor who blames the dryer for shrinking him, with the friend who gave up milk and thought she'd given up on bone too. Show them what a hallway looks like when it belongs to you. Tell them that calcium isn't a glass, it's a day. Tell them that you don't have to love every food on the list. You have to love 2 or 3 enough to repeat them. Tell them that stones stay away more reliably when calcium shows up at meals, and water lives in a glass you pick up without thinking. Tell them that sleep is bone's night shift, and lamps are cheap medicine. If it sounded like a neighbor with a stethoscope talking recipes on a porch, that's exactly what we're doing. We're making a skeleton-friendly life that tastes like your life already does, only with a few objects moved into better light. We'll keep turning healthy aging into bowls and 10-minute walks, into clocks and windows, into habits that feel like you put the house on your side. Draw a chalk line across 10 ordinary days and imagine it not as a challenge but as a path your feet already know. You are not starting over. You are tuning the house and the plate so calcium has a reserved seat, vitamin D holds the door, and vitamin K 2 points the way home. The line begins in a kitchen that smells faintly of lemon and warm pan, passes the hallway you'll claim after supper, and ends under a lamp that knows when to say goodnight. It is a small narrative, the kind you could tell a friend on a porch as the flag down the block folds itself in the breeze. The aim is simple. Stronger bones, steadier balance, quieter nights. Not because you chased a miracle, but because you built a routine that repeats without scolding. On the first evening, you arrange your tools like a stagehand who loves the show but hates drama. The carton of fortified soy milk stands in front on the fridge shelf and earns a shake each time your hand finds it. A can of salmon with soft bones sits beside the opener like a promise. Collards and bok choy lean upright in the crisper like bouquets. A small bag of chia waits in a mug with a spoon tucked inside so you can't forget why you bought it. The jar of tahini lives at eye level instead of behind the pickles. You put a pen and a pocket notebook on the microwave and write one line enough to count tomorrow without turning your kitchen into homework. The charger moves to the kitchen, so the phone has a bedtime. The lamp near your chair gets the last word tonight. No speeches. Just objects that know their jobs. The next morning arrives in a band of honest light across the counter. You sit on the edge of the bed long enough for balance to say good morning. Then you stand because the day asked. Breakfast is not beige. Oats meet fortified soy milk you've actually shaken. 2 spoonfuls of chia disappear into the bowl. A scatter of almond pieces adds a little chew. Coffee parks beside the food instead of beating it to the table. You slide the shade an extra inch and let your eyes collect 1 minute of daylight so your inner clock remembers the season. If a thyroid pill belongs to you, it got its solo time with water before breakfast. The calcium-rich bowl politely waited its turn. When lunch rolls around, collards and white beans take a skillet with garlic and lemon. Dinner repeats the idea without fuss. Salmon patties browned at the edges, broccoli that squeaks under heat, a squeeze of lemon that tastes like a decision. The hallway becomes your boulevard for 10 minutes, because weight-bearing is how bones feel needed. The phone sleeps in the kitchen. The lamp ends the day. You wake with a back that hums less, and a mind that recognizes the pattern already. A day or two later, you find yourself busier than you expected, and the plan survives because you built it to. You are late. The elevator is sulking. The weather thinks it's funny. Lunch is a collard bowl you made yesterday because you cut the whole bunch and didn't apologize for leftovers. Supper is canned salmon because your hands remember the motion even when your head is tired. You open. You flake. You fold in lemon and a spoon of plain yogurt. You sizzle the patties for a few minutes while the broccoli roasts. The tahini cup sits where you put it. You whisk, drizzle, and taste something round and satisfying where vegetables again used to live. You drink water like you mean it. You walk the hallway once, because once is enough to keep the line unbroken. That is what reinforcement looks like. Effort disguised as easy. Winter presses its face to the window on another morning, and you meet it with earlier supper and brighter indoor steps. The store opens at 9. You walk 2 laps behind a cart, not because errands insist, but because the floor is honest and the lights lift your mood. You smile at the stocker who is placing jars in tidy rows. You notice that your calves are little pumps, sending blood north. You remember, without saying it, that this is Bone's favorite kind of signal. Back home you make a soup that behaves. Bones from last night's chicken slide into a pot with water, onions, carrots, and a bay leaf. The heat stays low. No chef's reduction, no salt parade, just a gentle simmer that convinces collagen to drift into the liquid. At the end, you melt in a teaspoon of unflavored gelatin for body, to please your spoon and your cartilage. Lemon lands like sunlight. You portion the soup into jars. The wobble tomorrow will be a quiet promise. In the evening, the phone goes to its charger in the kitchen without argument. The lamp earns the last light. Sleep arrives because you made it likely, not because you chased it. By the middle stretch of the line, the house is doing half the work. The carton that needs shaking shakes itself because your hand learned the habit. The chia mug sits ready. You don't think about it any more than you think about grabbing keys. The bag of almonds stands next to the bowls in pieces, rather than whole, because your budget noticed they chew the same. The greens live on the front shelf. You see them first. You use them because they're there. Your notebook fills with nouns. Oats plus soy milk plus chia plus almonds. Collards plus beans plus tahini plus lemon. Salmon patties plus broccoli. Walked 12 minutes. You do not grade yourself. You simply write enough to see the pattern. When a loud dinner sneaks in a restaurant burger that wore too much salt and a beer that tasted like celebration, you write that too, and you notice the message in your ankles the next morning. You smile at the evidence because it is your own. Somewhere along the line a neighbor calls, a grandchild visits, or a doctor's appointment changes the day's shape. The plan bends. Breakfast becomes a fast cottage cheese bowl whipped smooth in the blender, dusted with cinnamon, sliding over a sliced pear so friendly you forget its job. Lunch turns into tofu, set with calcium, crumbled into a skillet with peppers and onions, smoked paprika giving off that diner in the morning perfume. Dinner backs off richness because a late lunch needed company. You choose bok choy in a hot pan, garlic and lemon doing what only they can do, and a small bowl of beans to make the greens a meal. You walk after dishes because the air is clean and the neighbor's beagle is telling the hydrangeas who's boss. You sleep because the lamp, not a screen, was the last thing your eyes greeted. A day that would once have knocked you off course now merely rearranges props. You're at a clinic for a DEXA scan because you're treating information as a tool rather than a verdict. The tech is kind, the machine hums, the picture will tell you the truth without drama. Later, your clinician glances at your 2-week notebook. The conversation tastes like a plan. Your vitamin D level is a little low, so a modest supplement joins your breakfast bowl. Your reflux medicine is doing its job, and together you decide that smaller, earlier suppers plus a couple of inches under the head of the bed might allow a lower dose later. If you have a kidney stone history, you schedule a 24-hour urine collection. You leave with a water bottle in your hand and a reminder that calcium belongs at meals, not at bedtime. None of this feels like a scolding. It feels like a roadmap, because it is one. The evenings become a rhythm so ingrained, you start to look forward to the choreography. Dishes done, you stand at the sink and slide one heel back, knee soft, calf lengthening until the rope behind your leg stops arguing. You hold the counter and switch sides. You set the rollator's brakes if it belongs to you, and stand tall for a moment longer than you did last week. The hallway offers its quiet carpet. You walk to the end and back. You run your fingertips along the painted wall and count the tiny bumps like braille. Balance practices without being asked. The phone rests in the kitchen where you left it. The lamp gives the last light. You breathe out like you're fogging a mirror. Your body files repairs in the dark. On a weekend, the house smells like a memory. You invite a thin slice of good cheese to the table and let it behave like K2 in a cameo shaved over lemony greens, tasting like something your grandmother would have insisted you try. You keep portions sensible because you learned long ago that pleasure lives in the first bites. You tuck a forkful of sauerkraut beside the fish if you love that bright tang. You don't turn food into a rule book. You turn it into scenes you can repeat. If you pour wine, you pour one glass, and water holds its elbow. The second glass tries to talk you out of your bedtime and into a poorer night's work for bone. You decline its invitation and wake grateful. You don't say, "I'm being good." You say, "I'm being me." And the house agrees. Sometime during this stretch, the difference announces itself in sentences that sound offhand. Jars open without a rubber band. The step off the curb asks for attention but not negotiation. The morning hum in your back turns into a whisper you answer with a stretch rather than a grimace. You notice the pencil mark on the pantry door and still come up shy of it, but you also notice that your posture claims more height than last year because the muscles that hold you up feel included again. The scale doesn't move much, but your rings turn with less persuasion after you let restaurant salt be a cameo instead of a nightly soundtrack. These are the kinds of victories that never trend online and never stop mattering. The line through 10 days is never straight. That's why the props do the heavy lifting. One afternoon, your grandson wants a chocolate milkshake. You taste a spoon. You enjoy it. You return to your own glass of fortified plant milk at home later, and let that be the big calcium moment your skeleton can actually use. Another evening, you're tempted to scroll news until it's late enough to call it insomnia. You put the phone in the kitchen and let the lamp finish the day, and you wake surprised at how much of sleep is a decision. A chilly morning dares you to skip the window. Instead, you give your eyes that minute of light, and remember that vitamin D is partly a conversation with the sky. You are living proof that healthy aging is a habit, not a headline. By the time you run a finger back over the chalk line, you can name the cast of characters without looking. Fortified soy milk that beats milk at its own game when you shake it. Canned salmon with soft bones that hides its strength in a skillet cake. Collards and bok choy that turn into dinner with garlic and lemon. Chia that acts like a pantry store of good sense. Tahini that makes greens glisten and convinces your palate to treat them like a main act. Almonds in modest handfuls that keep afternoons steady. A cameo cheese that brings K2 and pleasure without taking over the plate. Vitamin D that shows up in light and in quietly fortified cartons and, when needed, in a supplement aimed by a number, not a guess. Steps that happen where they can hallway, sidewalk, store aisle because bone answers to load and balance answers to practice. A notebook that holds nouns and times instead of judgments. A clinician who treats your data like a map and you like the owner of the car. You keep red flags on the same shelf as the flashlight so you know where they are if the lights go out. A sudden, severe back pain after a small twist. Tenderness right over a vertebra. A sense that you're shorter today that's a call now, not a let's see. A hip that steals your breath after a fall is a door you walk through right away. Stone pain that rises and refuses to leave, especially with fever, vomiting, or blood in the urine, is a night for urgent help. New confusion or weakness is not a place for negotiation. Naming these doesn't make them more likely. It makes you better at choosing the door that matters. And then there's the montage, the little movie you could play for someone who asks what changed. Morning light across the counter, a bowl you can assemble in the dark, coffee parked beside food like a well-behaved dog, a midday skillet that sighs under garlic and greens, tahini silked with lemon pouring like a small gift. A late afternoon errand that doubles as a walk because the aisle is bright and the floor is honest. A dinner that tastes like a diner in the best way. Salmon cakes that brown, broccoli that squeaks, a squeeze of lemon that ties the plate to the day. A hallway that belongs to you for 10 minutes while porch lights wink on and a beagle somewhere reports the neighborhood news. A lamp that knows how to end a day. A bed that is no longer a negotiation. A morning that makes you feel like your bones and balance remembered who they are. The outro writes itself because it's simply the truth you've been living. Calcium is not a glass, it is a day. Strong bones do not arrive by memo. They arrive by meals that repeat and steps that happen even when the weather votes no. Vitamin D is not a pill alone. It is also light on your face for 60 honest seconds and a number checked sometimes, so the dose you take is the dose you need. Vitamin K2 is not a trend. It's a cameo in foods you already like. Kidney stone prevention is rarely exile. It is timing, water, salt modesty, and pairing oxalate with calcium at meals. Sleep is the night shift for bone. Coffee and screens have curfews because you hired melatonin to turn the lights down. Prevention beats repair because prevention tastes like roasted broccoli, sounds like a skillet, looks like a hallway, and feels like a jar lid opening without a plan. Share this with the friend who swears she can't drink milk and therefore thinks she can't have bones. With the brother who remembered one kidney stone too well and has been avoiding the very foods that would help. With the neighbor who jokes about shrinking in the dryer, but hasn't yet made peace with the grocery list. Tap like if your kitchen can already smell lemon and garlic and hear the spoon click against a jar of tahini. Subscribe if this kind of porchside doctoring helps you turn longevity tips into bowls and clocks and short walks that you could keep even on a bad Wednesday. Tell someone you care about that stairs are just steps again when you give your body the small things it needs at the hours it recognizes. And then go rinse the skillet. Stretch your calf against the sink. Walk the hallway once while the flag down the block folds itself into evening, and let your bones get on with the quiet work they were built to do.